take the meat, leave the bones. Some things may apply to you, some may not, but it would add value as you take it all in. I'm noting that all of us are students here. I'm doing my master's, and a lot of my work actually revolves around Prof. Dankiso's work and his models. So the importance of education and being part of a higher education institution. I draw from this quote where in a society, education is a primary driver and catalyst for socioeconomic development. And historically, it's only those societies with a significant knowledge and managerial skills that have produced leadership that drives social change. And Paulo Freire is quoted by saying that education is inherently directive and must always be transformative. To that end, the step you have taken by forming part of a higher education institution for pursuing this knowledge shows that you are on a better path to make the world around you a better place where you can contribute and make a mark. And actually, attending seminars like this shows your commitment to your future. And I'd like to commend all of you for that and wish you all the best in your future endeavors and hope that you take the session today as part of that journey and that we add value to your life story. So the first part I want to speak to is purpose. When we speak about purpose, it first starts with you having a deep self-knowledge about yourself. What are your passions? What excites you? And what you can pursue that drives you in your life. So when I finished my matric, I actually chose UNISA. I'm one of the few individuals that straight from matric, I chose UNISA because of the self-awareness I was speaking to. So knowing that the historical school model didn't necessarily work for me, when I found out my aunt was with UNISA, and then I found out that their model, you actually get to study at your own time, you get to stay at home. Necessarily, I might not have chosen it for the best reasons because it was quite exciting not to have to attend class. However, it was a model that worked for me in the long run, as you have seen. But I was disengaged as a student. I think spending time at home, struggling with fees from time to time, dealing with all the challenges that come with youth. And I think it was when I was exposed to UNISA's student organizations that I became involved in different things and started contributing to the development of other students like myself, but also learning and growing in the process. So I think in that way, I also discovered my purpose in that I discovered I had a passion for leadership development and empowering others. And that I take with me because it shaped all of my youth to the extent that when I was done with my accounting degree, I actually, because of my involvement in the student structures, I had a contract as a student already, as an auditor for one of the big four firms. So because I was with UNISA, it allowed me to do what they called then to be a cadet, which was vacation work. So I got to be on audit and actually see what my life would be like as an auditor. Lo and behold, I found that it was not what was meant for me. So as I was already now being part of the profession, even though I was a student now doing my honors, it became quite clear that even though my whole life I'd wanted to be a chartered accountant, the career path that I had chosen did not fit with what I wanted at the time or what I felt I could contribute in society. So I actually then changed career paths. I followed my passion, and that's when UNISA adopted me, and we were the pioneers of community engagement. Here we were forming part of the UNISA's value chain of scholarship, where we took UNISA's knowledge and resources to the communities out there to try and contribute to their development and meet the Millennium Development Goals at the time and the National Development Plan imperatives. So that was quite exciting. I think I found myself fulfilled in that role. And speaking to then coming back to purpose, I think in terms of identity, I felt that was more me because it meant that I could contribute, I could add value. And in that state, I was actually fulfilled. I felt that I was living my life's purpose. So when we speak about purpose and you identifying yours, for others it's easy, for others it's a bit more difficult. You need to draw from your identity, what you think about most, and where you find it is quite easy for you to be disciplined. I say that because most of my life I struggled with issues of discipline, in the sense that, as some of you may be going through it, you know exactly when the assignment is due, and you wait until the last moment to do that assignment. So procrastination being the thief of time, I think I suffered a lot with that over my life, and it's a struggle to this day, but one I overcome in bits and pieces. I think Jim Rohn once said that success is nothing more than a few simple disciplines practiced every day. So from that point, I would suggest that if you are struggling with discipline, just take it one day at a time, build up one bit at a time. And whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. That's a quote from Ecclesiastes. So the second part, when it comes to you identifying your purpose, comes from inspiration. So this is the heart part of things. So where you find that you can be dedicated, this is something that you feel deep inside you as something that moves you to want to achieve more. It may be a good indicator that that is where your purpose and passion lie. Lastly is inertia. This is the physical action part where you work with your hands, where you then get into the action orientation, and it takes diligence in that process in order to ensure that you're successful. The next aspect of our engagement and the next path in my life, as I was engaged in what I felt was a fulfilling act, was part of my purpose, and I was being fully realized and fulfilled every day, the realities of life also came in. I had my daughter quite young, and when you're nearing, I think I was nearing about 30 at the time, I then realized that, look, I am earning a living, I'm fulfilling my purpose, except I'm falling behind in that I was not in a career stream, I was in a job. Yes, fulfilling, yes, one that was meeting my needs. However, I realized that I could not grow and develop in that role because at the time it was something that we created, we pioneered, and the opportunities for growth were very limited. So I then had to take a decision that I would have to pursue a career stream. In that, in reflecting, I knew I couldn't do auditing. As I said earlier, it became quite clear to me that I wasn't meant for that. But fortunately, in my path with my colleagues, in engagement, risk management became something that was a promising career. And in talking to individuals that were part of it, it became clear that it could be something that I could do and find joy in. I then took a chance. I moved all the way from Gauteng to Bloemfontein in the middle of nowhere to a little known university where I then began a career in risk management. Um, Fortunately, because of all the lessons I had learned as a student leader, as a community activist, all those skills, all my studies, all of them then found expression in the role I was in. And it became meaningful because I could then draw on what my passions were and introduce them into my role. And I think since then, my portfolio has grown quite significantly. And I'm the youngest senior director, male senior director at the university now. So to that extent, I think everybody who's at that part where when you're pursuing a career, once you started and you find that you might need a shift, it is okay to take that leap. So in the learning and practice element, that is the second part of our journey to excellence. In getting there, we need to look at learning. So not just learning from the book perspective, it's pursuing knowledge engaging in study, and being open to learning new things, because that opens up your world and opens you up for other opportunities that may come and arise in your life. Self-development, quite a big focus of my early days in my youth. As I said, I had a passion for leadership and empowerment to the extent that I read a lot of development books. And all of these consistently contributed to me reaching the next level in my life. And I think it contributed more so to me helping others achieve their dreams and goals and aspirations. The next aspect is practice, where you seek opportunities to gain practical experience and practice those skills and that knowledge that you've received. Sometimes it may not be in the form of a job. I think I found myself being an ambassador at UNISA for several initiatives that were in line with my career aspirations as well as my passions. So if you do find an opportunity to take it, to the extent that it will contribute to you also gaining other skills outside of also your field. So the next aspect when you're on your journey to excellence, and one that I think contributed quite considerably to me being where I am, is relationship management, where you create mutually beneficial networks and managing relationships effectively. Uh, I'm actually quite humbled to be speaking today. I think you heard me earlier thanking Mama Makanya. As a student leader back in those days, she did take us in and guide us not only in our careers but in our lives. Uh, I heard one of the colleagues mention I think Prof. Tankiso's wife was mentioned in his bio. My wife was presenting at one of the recent, uh, I think, two of the engagements of this nature. And those relationships, I think, have stood the test of time and have contributed to making me a better person. So everybody you meet in your life's path can contribute to your life, to your career. And it's quite important that you manage those relationships well and also make sure that you add value to their lives and play your part in them achieving their objectives as well. Communication. Being a good communicator is very important, but understand that different people communicate differently and you need to adapt accordingly, especially in the workplace and as well as an entrepreneur. It's quite important that you find ways to improve your communication style, find ways to be able to present, find ways to be able to prepare and speak to reports. These are going to contribute quite greatly in your career growth. Mentorship, approaching potential mentors for wisdom and advice. Sometimes it can also be at a distance, as I've communicated earlier. Prof. Tankis is someone that I've been following at a distance, and I think at a recent seminar we had an engagement which was quite exciting. But do approach people that you admire, have them mentor you. If nothing else, follow them at a distance. And furthermore, fortunately, with the advancements of technology, you can draw on YouTube videos, podcasts to gain the knowledge that you need from those who have walked the path before you. Now, the structured way to achieving excellence, not only as a student, but in the workplace and in your life. I have a four-part model that was developed over time where we look at structure, strategy, systems, and socialization. This is where we look at you as a person or people or your organization, where we speak to planning, where we speak to your practices and your policies, and where we speak to your program of action. So the structure part, identify how you want your life to be and envision the future that you want to create. To this extent, you then structure your life around that, create that framework, and everything that you do, once it fits into that mold, it sets you on a path to success and to achieving excellence. The next aspect is developing a strategy or a plan with your goals of exactly what you want to achieve, what your aspirations are, and then you begin with the end in mind. And that I draw from The Seven Habits, which is a book I'd recommend that each of you read at your spare time. The next aspect is socialization, where you have a program of action, where you have a process of diligently implementing your program of action, which integrates into your life so that you can achieve your goals. The next is the system and practices. We all rise and fall to our systems. to the extent that everybody, when they start out, you can just imagine people who are competing in a race. Everybody has the goal of winning that race. So setting a goal is not enough. Having the right systems in place to make sure you achieve that goal, that is a major contributor to achieving it. To that extent, we're looking at, if you have a system of waking up early in the morning, exercising, and if you're a runner doing sprints, you're more likely to achieve than an individual who doesn't have that system in place. So it's quite important that, for instance, as you prepare for exams or as you prepare for a particular workplace, you set up a system around it, control your environment to make sure that you can achieve what you aspire to achieve. I think I was helped quite greatly by my exposure to the leadership roles that I had and the individuals that taught me along the way in order to compensate for that procrastination I was telling you about. To the extent that some things I've built into my system so that no matter what happens, I can make sure that I achieve my goals. Right, I'm noting that I might be now going over time, but I'm going to give you some practical advice regarding your journey to excellence. Okay. 1, persevere. Failure is a crucial part of the learning process. Embrace it and learn from it. It took me 4 years to complete my 3-year degree. 4 years. I failed my first year. I had to do it over 2 times and then improved over time. And then I struggled with my postgraduate diploma in accounting sciences. However, all of these were part of the learning process, and I rose from that and I persevered to the extent that I'm now doing my master's in accounting sciences, something that a person with my history, I couldn't have thought I'd ever do. Patience. Success takes time. So you'd have to be patient and persistent so that you can persevere through the challenging times, of which many of you, to reach this level of a final year, is part of that perseverance. I think when I was doing my second year, I thought to myself, maybe I should drop this because I'm clearly not a competent student. I then later found that even though I was not the best of students in terms of the learning journey throughout a semester, fortunately, I was a good um, student in terms of preparing for exams. So fortunately, I write exams well, even though during the year I might not be the best of students. So sometimes you have to identify your strengths and your weaknesses and adapt to the changing environment. So stay curious, be open to new ideas and technologies. It's often said that AI might not replace your job, but your job could be replaced by someone using AI. So embrace technology, learn new things so that it can contribute to you becoming a better individual, also being a better student and a better employee, a better business person, and a better contributor to society. Lastly, growth. Once you embrace your challenges as opportunities to learn, you can grow from them. You need to view feedback from your colleagues, from individuals, as a positive thing that is information for your improvement. When you engage in continual improvement, it is in that way that you can get better and better and better. So you can imagine that if you just increase by 1% your effectiveness every day, by the end of the year, effectively, if my math is correct, it would be 365% improvement. So you could achieve 3 times better results just by increasing by just 1% a day. Okay. So reflections. Purpose is important. Identify your life's purpose. Look at your passions and your pursuits. This is the most important aspect and the route on your path to excellence. Next, development. Focus on your personal development and cultivating relationships with others that contribute to their development and yours as well. Lastly, excellence. Once you reach this phase, you'll be able to effortlessly execute and contribute in your society. My last remark is that only a life spent in the service of others is worth living. And that is, to paraphrase Albert Einstein's quote.
Right now, we have another speaker that we will call out. But those privileges I'm going to give to Umema Kanya, who is one of our specialists when it comes to developing careers. She will be calling out one of our guest speakers.
It gives me a great pleasure to introduce our next speaker, a young professional herself. She is in human resources and talent management. Boipelo Soko is the recruitment manager at Baker McKenzie South Africa office. She has a decade of experience in talent development. She also has a passion for helping young leaders to develop their strengths and unleash their potential by bringing out the best version of themselves. Our speaker, ladies and gentlemen, has honed her expertise in strategic HR leadership and has made her mark in legal recruitment by inspiring leaders who can strategically navigate opportunities and overcome challenges with resilience. She is also participating in many radio shows in discussing issues around graduate recruitment and talent sourcing. Ladies and gentlemen, please a round of applause for our speaker, Ms. Boipelo Soko, as she approaches our podium.
Thank you so much for having me on this session. As always, I enjoy speaking to your UNISA candidates. I myself also studied at UNISA for a little bit, so I have a very, very soft spot for UNISA. Again, thank you for the introduction. I won't go into a history of myself because I've been introduced. Just in the interest of time, I'll go straight into the presentation. I would like for it to be engaging. You can see the chat. And I know, Program Director, you said we're not taking questions now, but I'm just mindful that I will not have an opportunity to come back onto the call at a later stage. So if there are questions or comments as I'm speaking, please feel free to populate them on the chat. And depending on the slide that I have on, I'll be able to quickly address those. I'll be focusing on the skills that are required in not just in industry right now, but in your journey towards employment. I'm mindful that, you know, the beauty of UNISA is that candidates are not necessarily straight out of high school students going into varsity and then eventually looking for jobs. You have candidates that have extensive work experience and are potentially looking to pivot. You also then have the more traditional students who haven't necessarily had professional working experience and are quite anxious around what is that journey going to look like. And so in this presentation, I'm going to try to address that a little bit. What are some of the trends that we're seeing in recruitment as employers, some of the changes that we've kind of seen over the years that we think that applicants need to be mindful of as you navigate your journey. So professional effectiveness, so the elements and skills that you need for success in the workplace. I think there's a quote, quite a famous quote that says, "The only constant is change." And really what this refers to, especially in the world of work, is the fact that what got you to one place isn't necessarily what's going to get you into the next stage. And so with that level of uncertainty, there's also equally a sense of excitement around what are the changes that not just employees or applicants need to adapt to, but even employers, right? And I think quite often the conversation can focus a lot on applicants, but what applicants also need to be mindful of is that your industry and the organizations that you're trying to get into are also having to adapt to changes in industry, having to adapt to the needs of the employees, to what skill sets are required in order to remain competitive, in order to remain relevant. And that's exactly the same for an applicant as well. It's understanding what are the things that you need to do to make yourself both competitive, stand out, and also then get you into the next stage of your career, right? So right now you have a sense of transitioning into a period of uncertainty in which you really can't rely on your previous approaches to get you to the next place. So what does that then look like? What do you then put into your bag of tricks, so to speak? You need to be focusing on complementary tools that you already do possess. So in this session, it is, you know, the skills that, or the training, the theory that you're having in your studies, and how are those then aligned to your own skill set. So you know, in Tsepo's presentation, he touched on quite a bit around understanding yourself and understanding your skills, your strengths, I guess. So what are those, and how do those then also align with your experience, your talents, your abilities, and in many interests, in many ways, your passion and the like? How do you put those things together and ensure that you're moving forward in the way that you need to? At the onset, I think one of the biggest things that we're seeing in industry is maybe these three elements, and these cut across any industry. Just that level of self-confidence around your own abilities. And that's what that really speaks to, is a self-awareness. You need to know what your abilities are. You need to understand where you are falling short, and then compare that with what is it that is necessarily what isn't necessarily a strength versus a self-doubt or an imposter syndrome, for example. So being able to separate those already puts you in a league that is further than your peers. Understanding, you know, how it is that you judge things, what is your viewpoint of life? Again, what are your abilities? So yes, we're all studying for a specific course or specific degree, but we may even be at different levels into it. I'm going to touch quite a bit on some of Tsepo's points, because I think there's a lot of overlap here. But you know, you are in first year, for example, or actually you may be in your postgrad level. But some of you are carrying more modules than others. So some of you have a little bit more knowledge than others. So even understanding that you are walking into environments, not necessarily with everybody on the same starting block, but you need to understand what block you are on and what block you need to then get to. Okay, so how do you do that? You do that by having a clear direction and goals. And to the extent that you are unable to figure out what exactly am I working towards, because not everyone always knows what it is that they are looking for, then you then I would suggest that you take a screenshot of this and do a little bit of self-analysis, right? So why are you here? Literally and figuratively. So if we're looking at it literally, even in this presentation, why have you bothered to give up your whole morning to sit through this presentation? What is it that you are hoping to get out of it? How do you think it aligns to where you are trying to get to? So it's all good and well to at the end of this day say, I'm so inspired. I, you know, was at this presentation and we had alumni speaking and we had all these different speakers telling us about their journey. But what does that then mean for you tomorrow when you then have to, you know, sit down and study, when you have to then decide, like, am I going to apply for a certain role? Am I going to decide, is this the role that I'm looking for or not? So why are you here literally and figuratively? What is it that you are looking to get out of the different experiences that you expose yourself to? Because in understanding that, you are then starting to pay attention to the things that are then going to develop you further, right? And then it also then helps you identify what are your unknown or even your known skills and competencies. So what are you good at? What are you not good at, and how and which ones specifically do you need to be working on, and why? And that ties into the which. So are you able to then demonstrate certain skills, and which ones do you need to be able to demonstrate, and at which point? So touching on a point I made earlier, all of you are at different levels of experience, of education, etc. For some of you, you have a wealth of working experience. But if you are doing this course because you are looking towards a promotion, then it needs to be clear why this course is going to help you in your promotion. So once you then get into that promotion, for example, what do you then need to do to, to continue to develop and to perform in that role at the expected at the level of expectation, versus somebody coming in, let's say as a graduate, first professional job. So for them, very different skills and competencies expected, and a difference in terms of when those skills and competencies are expected to be demonstrated. So if we touch on something that most people love to talk about, time management, you know, you naturally expect that a UNISA student has good time management skills because of your study model, right? However, for somebody that has worked 3, 4, let's say in excess of 4 years, their understanding of managing multiple deadlines, multiple priorities is very different from a student who had just come straight out of varsity and started studying it, straight out of high school and started studying at UNISA, because for them, that student experience of or understanding of time management is based solely on your educational requirements. So it's just about making sure that you meet the assignment deadlines, test deadlines, etc. Very different from even a student who then has to juggle with other priorities, like if they've joined societies on student leadership, working retail, etc. So it's in exposing yourself to the different, let's call it professional development experiences and exposures, that gives you a sense of what is it that I need to get to my next level. What are the things that I already am quite good at that I can, just tweak a little bit, or what are the things that I am seriously struggling with, but will be required of me at a later stage. And again, what are the things that I think I'm not good at, but actually are completely unnecessary to me because they don't have any real effect on where I'd like to take my career. Once you figured that out, you then package it into your own strategy for success. So what is it that you need to do? What does that then look like? Do you need to get a mentor? Do you need to be applying to vacation programs, for example, or internships so that you get practical experience? Do you need to, if you're already working with extensive working experience, do you need to be having different conversations with your manager or your line manager, or even above your line manager if necessary? So understanding your strategy for success is what will then ultimately get you into that next step. Okay, so what do some of those skills for professional effectiveness kind of look like? I'm going to touch on a few. I'm going to touch on a few that I think cut across industry, cut across level of experience, cut across even studies. This one for me is one that has become quite a key point over the last couple of years. That sense of accountability. So your ability to take ownership, not just of yourself, but of the results of the work and the results that you get from the work that you put in. So not so much looking at what is everyone else doing around me, what are the circumstances of how I landed up where I am, but more around what is it that I do? What are the decisions that I am making that affect my ability to get to where I need to be? And then preparing yourself also for challenges, because there will be challenges, there will be failures, there will be setbacks. So to what extent do you need to make changes to your approach to failure versus success? And again, also even understanding what does success look like? Because if you don't have a sense of what success means to you, then really your work can be completely derailed by challenges when they do happen, because they will. And some of those challenges might be, again, a point that Tsepo touched on, your own lack of discipline. And if you are unable to see that you lack discipline to get to the points that you need to in your career, in your life, then you will naturally have a view that assumes that things happen to you, as opposed to what is it that you are doing that affects the outcome of your ability to get to success, your strategies for success. Your learning agility, also quite an important one. So do you have a growth mindset? What a growth mindset is a focus on challenging yourself. So different to challenges that come up against you, a growth mindset really speaks to you having a healthy attitude too. So to the extent that I feel that things do happen to me, what is my approach to that? What is my response to that? And again, important that you distinguish between the two. So your approach is active, your response is passive. So your response is, it's happened to me, and so now I'm going to have to do this. So A has happened, I now have to do B. And then with the other perspective, where it's your approach, your personal approach, you are then going, this could happen, or whatever happens, I know that I am constant in my ability to succeed, right? So just that healthy attitude to, well, this challenge has happened, whether it's an interpersonal challenge, whether it's a competent or technical challenge, you can then approach it as a learning opportunity, as opposed to saying, oh, I don't know what to do, and so somehow this problem must be fixed. Are you the person that goes into into an issue and then seeks to look for opportunities versus waiting for somebody to tell you what to do? That's a very, very important thing for you to be able to understand, even in your own, in your day-to-day practices. If you even look at your own studies, when you have a challenging module, for whatever reason, whether it's the content, whether it's your ability to give it the kind of time that is required for you to, to pass it in the way that you want, what does that look like? How do you approach it? So having that learning agility is quite an important point. And then your communication skills. What is your effective communication skills? Are you an active listener, for example? And in your active listening, what are the perspectives that you're taking away and applying to you, because they are then important to you for your own development? Your ability to communicate your own strengths, your ability to communicate your challenges, especially in the world of work, quite important. Quite often we find that, especially with graduates, people are coming into the workplace and they have a sense of awareness around what people, how other people speak to them. And you'll often find graduates saying stuff like, oh, my sense, my instinct tells me something isn't necessarily right. Maybe this person doesn't like me, or this person isn't necessarily like me. And so I kind of avoid them, or I don't know how to manage this person because they're different, or they seem to have a favorite, etc. But quite often, when you kind of dig deep a little bit into a discussion with them, you realize that the issue isn't about an interpersonal engagement so much as it is a lack of or inability to communicate clearly and to the slide effectively. So people are paying attention to, say, for example, body language. But if your viewpoint or your approach is such that you think that people are coming at you, for example, then you then miss out on opportunities to learn from different types of people. You miss out on opportunities to learn different perspectives from different people, because those are not your lived experiences and those are not necessarily your day-to-day experiences. Okay, and then coming into the other set of skills, planning and organizing. So this one goes without saying, irrespective of your level of seniority or experience, your ability to sit down and break goals or tasks into manageable steps so that you can actually then get to them and get them done. is extremely important. This one really can't be understated. This really speaks to, you know, your ability to project manage your life, project manage different aspects of your life, in your work and in your studies, in your personal life, in your relationships, etc. And then really just being able to say, okay, well, this is how I need to stay organized. What are the things I need to do? What kind of filing systems do I put into place? And systems that are easy for you to understand, but also easy for other people to be able to understand, especially if you're then working in environments where people rely on your work in order for them to get into the next step. So really important for this one to, you know, to kind of be bedded down, especially now when one studies, understanding when to delegate tasks and you know, see clarity, again, speaking to, you know, communication skills. Okay. And then just as a second last one, the ability to problem solve. I touched on this one slightly earlier. So being able to break down really complex problems into smaller manageable tasks or parts. So understanding what is the root issue, whether it's an interpersonal issue, whether it's a, you know, technical skill, a competency issue, being able to identify a root cause and then understand what is the approach that should be taken to address this. Irrespective, really, I cannot press on this hard enough. Irrespective of the problem, your ability to analyze, break down, and then communicate what an issue is and then what the solution is, will really just set you apart in many ways from peers. And then your ability to work with peers. So what are your collaboration skills? Again, the communication skills that I touched on. Your ability to be open to feedback. We hear this a lot. Graduates will say, you know, I'm open to feedback. I really want to hear what I do well and what I haven't done well so I can fix it. But it's, if you remember my earlier slides, it's an understanding what are the things that you actually needed to work on versus the things that will not necessarily take you forward. So just being able to apply that judgment to, is this feedback not just constructive, but also not just constructive, but necessary to me, right? And is it then aligned to those goals and those expectations that I expected of me? And or does it help me with the areas of development that I want to work on? Okay, and then this one, hot topic, conflict management. I think many a time this is a topic that is kind of avoided. But is quite an important one. How you manage conflict. You need to have a sense of self around how you manage conflict. What is your conflict management approach? Are you somebody that avoids issues? Are you somebody that becomes competitive? Do you compromise? You overly compromise? Do you come into issues with a sense of collaboration? Everyone must kind of come to the party? Or are you the person that over accommodates? Being able to identify this, again, will help you understand, A, what is your area for development, if any, within these conflict management spaces, but it will also help you it'll also help you to identify it in the people that you work with. Because when you understand how different people approach conflict, you are able to understand, like, where is it that you need to adapt in order, where is it that you individually, but also that other person needs to adapt in order for you to find a mutually beneficial solution. Avoidance, for example, for me is almost like a cardinal no, because then nobody wins. You know, people are then unhappy with the solution that's been agreed upon, and then there's a lot of you can find like people become disengaged, or there's just like a negative effect that carries over into the solution that was supposedly agreed upon. So for me, this one really is a point that I would want all graduates really to just kind of focus on. experienced employees to really just focus on, because once you understand this, you understand, you have a sense of self-mastery. And then just touching on, again, also more general skills. So your ability to understand different types of AI, what AI is affecting the sectors that you are in, what does that kind of look like, your ability to analyze data. So which information is necessary, which information do you have to sift off, and which information do you have to prioritize. Effective communication, I already touched on. Project management, I also touched on. So being able to break down tasks. And then finally, just an ability to adapt to different circumstances. And with that, I'm kind of going to close off a little bit on the slide, just these 5 points. You really do need to have a sense of motivation. I think Tsepo called it a sense of purpose. So what motivates you? What are the things what are you working towards? What is your idea of success? What does that look like and why? What is your idea of failure? What does that look like and why? And how do you interrogate that? What is your knowledge of self and of the areas in which you are trying to have expertise? What are your abilities? Really, what is your own self-confidence for the things that you are trying to work towards and achieve? And again, just to press on this, your confidence is the thing that is going to balance out your motivation, because motivation wanes. Motivation is sometimes, again, like I said earlier, motivation is sometimes attending this kind of talk, right? It's something that will then inspire you, but your confidence in I can and I will succeed is the thing that's going to keep driving you, because if you believe that you can and you will succeed, you are more inclined to get into habits that will steer you in that direction, that will lead you into that direction. And then of course, just your authenticity around your approach to yourself, and just being yourself and wanting to be the person that you want to be versus whatever success kind of looks like to somebody else. And yeah, that's it from me. I wish you all the best in your journeys towards success. A reminder that, the journey to success is never going to be linear, but that part of success in that journey is the fact that it is enriching, and it will continue to be enriching if you are open to the different opportunities that are available to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Soko. Thank you very much. That was a very lovely and informative presentation. Yes, we also The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. Truth is, when I look at what Mr. Mutudi was talking about and what you have been presenting about, yes, we definitely need this book of 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, because competence is a very important factor when it comes to success, So as much as, yes, we have the drive, we have the wishes, one can say, but competence, So like you guys have alluded that you get as much skills as you can, Obviously, you start by identifying, in fact, by knowing yourself, Kalaguti, your capabilities and your abilities as a person. Then you upskill yourself. You get as much skill as you can. Make sure that you are one of the most effective people around. That's how you build up competence. And the information that you gave us, it's priceless. Thank you very much, Ms. Soko. Thank you. Guys, as we proceed with our program, we finally managed to get Professor Tankiso Moloi. He was really struggling with the network, but now he is available. As we all know that he is our keynote speaker for today. Prof, the floor is yours. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I was listening to the 2 presentations earlier on from Mutudi and Boipelo Soko, then just very, very interesting perspectives. I was taking a lot of notes, but very, very interesting perspectives, from, Muthuti spoke a little bit about technologies, and then Boipelo spoke about the human element and some of these skills that one needs to have. Just more so, I think as the Japanese are saying, we are now in the fifth industrial revolution where human-machine interactions will be important. I thought, the skills that Boipelo was talking to just were crucial. And of course, the stuff that Tuti spoke to, I thought it was very, very important. Just also then to clear it up, majority of my qualifications are from UNISA. My BCom came from UNISA. My honors BCom also came from UNISA, and the MCom came from UNISA. And I went and did other qualifications somewhere else. UNISA remains dear and important to me. And also just to also declare that when I was 17 and I was doing my first year qualification, as Muthuti was saying, I also found myself in Mrs. Makanya's office. And she was asking, "What are you doing here?" So I was small in the body. So she says, "What are you doing here? What do you want to study?" And funny, people don't believe me. I didn't know what I wanted to study, so I just knew that I wanted to do some commerce studies, and she's the one that directed me to accounting. So then by qualification, I'm an accountant, a member of the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants, and just recently been elected to their council, which is the highest structure that makes decisions and examinations. So then, in and around management accounting. So today, based on the research that we've been conducting, so I thought, maybe let me just share. So then on top of the skills that we talk about, also then digital literacy. So why digital literacy will be important in the fourth and the fifth industrial revolutions, then fluency, digital fluency, then all the way to digital agency, which is the ultimate in terms of operating in the digital environment, as presented by these revolutions that we find ourselves in. So then you already know the first, second, third industrial revolution. So then just want to focus on the fourth industrial revolution, so which is more of machine intelligence, machinery, machines becoming more intelligent and doing stuff that sounds like human as a means. So, and Turing told us long time ago in the 50s in the conference that took place in Dartmouth. So then in this fifth industrial revolution, so what we're seeing a lot of, research shows that there will be a lot of human machine interactions. So then we, when people come and say to me, so then I think Muthuti touched on this. So then some roles will end and there'll be unemployment, etc., etc. So then unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't think so. So I just think that there will be this relationship between humans and machines. And then this now requires a different set of skills, which I then characterize it as digital literacy, then just basic understanding of how machines work, then the fluency aspect of things, where you get very, very fluent on it, and the agency part, which I think, in my view, is the ultimate. So this comes from, some books, research that we've kind of done, which I'll just show show here. Then as I move to, talk a little bit about this literacy and the fluency and the agency and the questions that you need to kind of ask yourself so that you can say, I'm literate. So what questions do you need to tick? I'm fluent. Then the questions that needs to be ticked, and then the ultimate goal being, so the agency part of things. So, and like some of these ideas, they emerge from some of these books that we've kind of tried to put together. Firstly, so then trying to understand the concept of digital transformation in an emerging nation like South Africa. So then, and then if you look at the book that's at the center, so then how do you transform accounting and business processes so that you can play a role in the era that's characterized by in intelligent machines. Then Tuli was talking about managing risks. So we've put some treatises together. So then how do you manage these risks in the fourth industrial revolution? So then we create scenarios there, how companies could fail, how others could do well, depending on the situation. So then the other book down there on the AI in economics and finance theories is just your pure theory book that is, that could be prescribed. But essentially, so then it's just the finance theories that and economics theories that underpins most of the work that is done in finance and economics. So how do they change with AI? And then we imagine, so in another book, we imagine corporations, how strategy and operations are impacted by AI. So in another book, but my research interest is specifically in what is called risk management and corporate governance. Hence, you see, those three books. So that's my research interest. So then the element of artificial intelligence is more of pivoting. So from where I'm sitting, then to think now broader, how does this thing affect the work that we've done? So I've just summarized in the next 4 or 5 slides, based on the work that we've been doing. So then what are the pillars of your digital literacy? What is digital literacy? So what is fluency? And then the ultimate, as I say, the concept of digital agency. But just before I go there, so then a couple of years ago, as I said, I'm an accountant by qualification, and most people would say, but how do you find yourself in the 4IR space, et cetera, et cetera? I think it was Wipilo that spoke about the ability to pivot. So then I think that will just be one of the most important things. So then you have the base, you would have studied something, so that gives you the base, but now, be multidisciplinary. So then, that will become important. So this, one of the SETAs, Education, Training and Development Practices, SETAs, then they gave me a chair. So then, like in academia, so then you'd have the SACHI chairs, then you also have what is called the innovation chairs. So then they asked me to look at the whole higher education setup in the South African context, from the early childhood, centers, primary and high schools, both private and public, TVET colleges and private higher education institutions, as well as universities. So study these things. When you've studied these things, come back to us. Tell us, what are the technologies that are there? What are the skills? Student side of things, teacher side of things, and then, determine the critical needs of the future. So essentially, I have to determine the critical needs of the future for the sector. Then hence now you see, then I come to the conclusion that the major things would be this digital literacy and digital fluency. Then when we do this report, so and then when we're done, so we come up with this key finding. So we think literacy will be important. Then essentially, so just the basic understanding of how digital tools can be used, but then you then move a step further to the fluency aspect of things. So then how you can use technology, confidently, ethically, and then you can communicate, you can collaborate using, the technology, you can create value, and then you can evaluate and try to solve problems. So then if you do all these things, and we think you yeah, indeed, you'd now be fluent. So I'm just thinking about myself, so sitting in class. So then say, okay, then how do I make sure that my students do not use ChatGPT? So if they've used ChatGPT, so I can be in a position to figure out that, look, this doesn't come from a student. So then the ethical aspect of things, then, you know, how can I use a simple tool like this, Teams, MS Teams, you know, confidently in a way that, you know, then I can have the text appearing as I speak, so then I can know where to click, etc., etc. So then I can also create value, etc., etc. So then say, okay, then I'm fluent. But in the end, we come up, we say, okay, in the education system in South Africa, so we need these, you know, just as a base, the literacy. We just need to make sure that we embed the literacy, and then we can then build from here to towards fluency. So which I think anyway. So then if we do this, you know, our economy is going to benefit. Then I drew these are slides that I basically put together then recently. And okay, then if you are you know, you have the digital literacy, you are literate in terms of using the digital technologies. First thing, you know, come up with these pillars. We say you must stay up to date with existing technologies. So it could now be in your space, where you're working. So, or it could just be, you know, the generic technologies, etc. But stay up to date with existing technologies. I think right now, for instance, generative AI. So then key and you know, critical technology. So then, but if you spend time and read some of these documents, then one of the things that you're going to figure out is that there are two countries that are essentially running the show. So that would be your US and then China. So then, of course, then technology is just far much more, you know, advanced, you know, from your military perspective. But also then people that have used technology, you know, to their benefits are businesses. But I mean, those two countries, you know, they kind of are far much advanced. So you stay up to date to start with, you know, when it comes to existing technologies and new technologies that are coming through. So you can use the technology to properly communicate, you know, in an online environment. So these are pillars. Then you can manage teams. So in class, for instance, then you can manage students leveraging technologies. And I think the most important thing is the formulation of ideas and managing, you know, in an online environment. So then creativity, innovation, etc., etc. So then business value. So how do you, you know, after you've interacted with this technology, then value becomes important. So then these are 4 pillars that I think are important in the digital literacy space. But now the skills. So then, like, you know, if you're a researcher like me, so you can use these technologies to conduct independent research. I think one of the technologies that we use a lot, you know, English is not my first language, so, but I mean, when you write, these books must be proper. So then they give us Grammarly. So I know that Grammarly, so I would go back, right, then Grammarly would kind of you know, assist me. But I mean, there are just so many other technologies that one can use. So then the skills, you know, foreseen in digital literacy. So, you know, the ability of you to use these technologies for independent research. So then, but I think for me, the most important thing now are terms. So I meet a lot of people, so then confusing AI, then they would say IA. So then just, you know, those common terms. So ML, so you know, okay, machine learning. MLA, you know, machine learning algorithms. So then DL, you know, deep learning. DX, you know, digital transformation. So then the use of common terms. So then your knowledge of the way in and around digital technologies or digital platforms. So then, you know, if you go to LinkedIn today, lots of training programs on AI, ML, etc., so are taking place. So if you kind of maybe consider what we're doing today, imagine you try to put your slides up, then you can't move them. So just knowledge of your way around the digital platforms. And then, facilitation of collaborations. So then crucially, a crucially important skill to learn in the era. Then I think, so then we below spoke about this adaptation. So then I think in my case now, it will be quick adaptation to technologies. So then if there is a new technology and it impacts the work that you're doing, so it's just crucial to adapt to it quickly. So then Muthuti was talking about risk management, for instance. One of the things that we have been thinking about following that enterprise risk management in the fourth industrial revolution is the concept itself of risk management. So then how can we conduct risk management, say maybe in a virtual environment, in a virtual space? So then how do you simulate the disasters? So how do you simulate the recovery? So then, and then of course, imparting knowledge on a continual basis, using some of these technologies. And then on this, I spoke about the digital literacy first. Then on the fluency side of things. So then the first one is now thinking digitally. So if you have a problem or so, then what tools can help me, to solve this problem? So then thinking digitally. So then data-driven, decisions. So of course, like if you look at your learners, your machine learning algorithms or so, then they help you to analyze that data so that you can be able to draw these trends and make a decision. So then, then be in a position to, to understand the data that you have, then use it for decision making. And then business models, as you kind of course, move from certain processes, and then you start to think digitally. Of course, then the business model also has to kind of shift. So you've got to be in a position to figure out the technologies, the tools that you can kind of use in a newly defined business model. We talk about this so in one of the webinars where we talk digital transformation. So then, the idea behind some of these business models. So then, if you kind of, so I just want to talk about, because I spoke about the digital literacy and then digital fluency. So just about to close now so that at least you can understand it. So of course, so then I lump both proficiency and literacy. So because you've got to be proficient first. But I mean, that's just not enough. But I normally just lump it together, both literacy and proficiency, and based on Wenmott's, graph. And it talks about conscious incompetence, and then all the way to being unconsciously competent. So then, then it just, if you think digitally, so most of these things, they just come naturally. So then if they come naturally, then you now have become, unconsciously competent. So then there are just some questions there, as you build into your future to check, for instance, okay, am I digitally fluent? Am I digitally literate? Am I proficient or so? But for the purposes of this, I've just lumped it together. But, the way to understand it is that, you start from the knowledge. So then you get to, the understanding, then you get the wisdom. So the fourth one, so if you went to this, slide, so then just two more slides. If you went to this slide, so now we've introduced the fluency part of things, the digital fluence. So then the agency part of things. So then, like, again, so we have some questions, some 5 questions that you can ask yourself. But all that, if you looked at these slides, also they spoke about knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. So then it will be knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. And the last portion, so when I kind of think of it or define it, so for instance, if you look at if you look at the second point or so, are my decisions guided by my new connections with others and the responsibilities I have to them? You look at number 4, is my digital behavior respectful of others? And do my actions contribute to the collective efficacy of the groups? Then you look at number 5, do I demonstrate a technical, social, legal, and ethical, as well as moral? So that for me becomes then, important. Important because you now move from your proficiency, wisdom, etc., so to things like responsibility, accountability, fairness, the whole picture of corporate governance, and then those that would have done auditing or those that would have done financial management or so, or theories of finance, they would know the agency theory, that digital agency, that agency representing, the agent. So then just for me, these are questions. So when you ask yourself these questions, etc., of course, you would have started with the proficiency, etc. So then these questions, when you ask to yourself, then you'll be in a position to say, all right, I'm fluent. I need to move to the next step. So no, I'm still, sitting in the literacy aspect of things. Then the last slide, program chair. So then again, so it comes from the New Zealand research, which I found very, very interesting. So then we were thinking about the whole higher education sector, TVET colleges, etc., to say, okay, so how does a digital citizen looks like? So then in your case, so as you consider this for yourself, you would be confident and capable, of using the ICT infrastructure. So you'd be able to participate in the economy using the technologies. So then, I see a lot of careers emerging in some of these spaces, and most people beginning to really work from home by deploying some of these technologies. You'd be able to develop critical thinking in the space, in the cyberspace. Of course, there are risks, so there are always the risks in the cyberspace. Then I think for me, so this point becomes important. You are literate in the language and the symbols of digital technology. So then most people always ask me, so I make an example, say AI, artificial intelligence, ML, machine learning, so DX, digital transformation. So you must be able to be literate in that language. So then again, so then the last point, I mean the fifth point is important, and you must be aware because you are now a digital, you are at the digital agency phase. Must be aware of the challenges that the ICT infrastructure or the whole virtual environment presents, and then you can then manage this effectively so that you don't bring reputational harm to yourself and to the organization that you are associated with. Again, so then using ICT infrastructure positively and in meaningful ways, honestly and integrity. So we see this a lot in universities. So with ChatGPT, for instance, as I said, if you kind of don't spend time thinking about this, you could give students 100%. So then students would need their training. I just suppose that you ask to go and do this project, to go and ask ChatGPT. ChatGPT does that for you. You must be able to demonstrate that honesty and integrity and ethical behavior as you use the ICT infrastructure. And of course, the privacy becomes crucial in the digital world. And then finally, program chair. So then the point that I want to raise on the things that we seeing out there based on our research, and we think people should be familiar with and prepare themselves, is the contribution that is positive, the promotion of the values of digital citizenship. That's it on my side, and the stuff that I wanted to share and things that I would like colleagues to be conscious of as they move forward in their careers. Think literacy, citizenship, and then towards the bigger goal of the agency. Thank you so much.
Now, as we continue with our program, we are now going to our alumni guests. We have Ms. Letlogonolo Mamabolo, who is currently a data analyst. She also did a BSc degree with UNISA. I think it's a BSc degree in mathematics and computer sciences.
My name is Letlogonolo Mamabolo. Most people call me Nolo because they have difficulties pronouncing my full name. Coming to think of it, I got this name from UNISA, from this other guy who was from Nigeria. He would call me Nolo, and the name has stuck with me ever since. You know how you would have plans for your life, but God would have even better plans for your life? Well, UNISA was honestly God's perfect plan for me. I applied to so many universities. God rejected to some, and to others I got accepted. But then I had issues with funding. Then I took a gap year. My mom's friend, who was then a UNISA student, recommended UNISA. She assisted me with the university application and registration, and also the funding application process, and everything went smooth. Many people would ask, why BSc Mathematics and Computer Science? Well, I had an interest in mathematics from a very young age. I knew I wanted to study something in relation to mathematics. UNISA provided the perfect platform to pursue my mathematical interest. They had a course that included mathematics as a major. When it came to selecting my course of study, I wasn't sure between BSc Mathematics and Stats or BSc Mathematics and Computer Science. Then my cousin, who was in the IT industry, advised it's best if I take computer science, since technology is rapidly growing, and then that's how I chose the BSc Mathematics and Computer Science. First year at UNISA, I decided to start slowly by registering for just 2 modules. I didn't have high expectations initially because I wasn't fully aware of what to expect. The modules I registered were EUP, which was a common module for all UNISA students, and then the other module, it was Introduction to Programming 1, which was a computer science module. Both modules were computer-based, and I didn't own a computer or a laptop at a time, so I relied mostly on the university's computer lab to complete my assignments. This challenged me to make the most of the resources available to me. I would say the transition from high school to university was not easy. High school had a structured environment where you have your classes and your teachers and your set schedule. University, on the other hand, required a shift to self-learning and self-discipline. I had to develop effective study habits.
You need to go and ask about it.
Somebody? Okay. I had to develop effective study habits to manage the responsibilities that came with university education. The challenges, the academic pressure is so real, and it can be overwhelming at times. The assignment deadlines and exam. I remember there were times I would write exam back to back. The other challenge I faced was access to lectures. It wasn't simple. I had to schedule an appointment and travel to Florida to have a one-on-one session with a lecturer. Certain modules offered classes, but those classes started very late in the evening, around 6, and then they would end at 7 p.m. And I was using a train as a mode of transport, so it was a bit of a challenge there. I encountered my first ever academic failure at UNISA. It was in 2015, first semester. I registered for 5 modules. I passed only 1, failed 3, and received a supplementary exam for 1. It was a challenging experience that humbled me and served as a significant learning moment. It was not easy, but I had to acknowledge and accept the setback. One of the highlights of my time at UNISA was the exposure gained from attending various events. UNISA organized events that allowed students like myself to broaden our horizon. My friends and I made sure to attend nearly every event. I would say we were full-time students at UNISA. The SRC would organize free transportation, sometimes food for the events held outside campus, making them accessible to all students. The picture on the bottom right, we were attending an International Youth Fellowship World Camp, which it was an event held outside UNISA. They organized transportation for us. And then the picture on the bottom left, I think we were attending a young professional seminar. It was held in Building 15, Sunnyside campus. And then we would also attend events such as the CSIR Science Forum. They would normally host those events, I think, first week of December. I also volunteered as an usher at the career fair from 2015 to 2017. To be honest, I cherished those events for the knowledge and experience they brought. An important part of the university experience is making friends and developing relationships. And through these experiences, I formed lifelong friendships. Graduation day. Oh my gosh. Graduation day was truly one of the greatest moments of my life. Everything I had enjoyed through my academic journey led to this incredible day. It felt like a dream to be a special guest at my own graduation. Despite financial constraints, everything fell into place miraculously. My makeup was done for free. I didn't have to pay for the pictures, and they unfolded perfectly. Celebrating with my family and friends made it even more memorable. The absolute highlight was taking a selfie with Mr. Thabo Mbeki. UNISA holds a special place in my heart for making this unforgettable moment possible. I am now a graduate and I have a qualification. Then what? Ooh. Job search was very stressful and challenging. If anything, I experienced rejections through that. Rejection is like death. You never get used to it. Although it is common during the job search process, it hurts every single time. I applied to so many companies, I even lost count. Be it a learnership, a graduate program, a junior position, I would apply. Many entry-level positions require some level of work experience, which can be challenging for a new graduate. At first, you won't get any reply at all. Then you start receiving a "we regret to inform you" email. If you know that email, you know what I'm talking about. Then you get called to the interviews, but you never get past the interview phase. I remember at some point I wanted to give up because doors wouldn't open, but what kept me going was that I had nothing to lose but everything to gain. Every no, I took it as a redirection. I learned that performing well in a job interview required preparation and practice. The job search has taught me resilience, patience, and persistence. I graduated 2018, but I got my first professional job in January 2019. I was hired as a graduate data engineer in a consulting company specializing in business intelligence. I was happy that finally I got to show my skills and apply the theory that I have learned in university in the workplace. However, the expectations I had were somewhat different. The work environment is very different from university. At work, you get to experience the practical side of things. Continuous learning is very essential. The learning does not stop after graduation. There were some technologies and tools I had to learn because I didn't do any of them at varsity. I had to upskill myself on the SQL language because in university I was more familiar with the C++ language. So I had to transition from C++ to SQL. Being open to new knowledge and experience is very important for your career growth. The graduate program was a 1-year contract and they had planned on renewing the contract, but I decided not to continue. I loved what I was doing, but I just didn't like the consultation part because you get to move around a lot. The contract ended in September, and then between October to February, I was actively involved in the SEED, which is an NPO. It's an organization very close to my heart. It's an organization that provides professional counseling for people who have experienced any type of trauma. We regularly organize events to raise awareness about trauma counseling. It was on the 26th of February 2020, I got a call that I have been chosen for the insurance learnership program. I didn't have any background knowledge on insurance, but I accepted the offer. I have always wanted to work at a telecommunication company or the financial institute, so I applied mostly to those companies. When the opportunity came from the financial institute, I gladly accepted the offer. The program started in March 2020. We went to the office the first week and the second week, and then on the third week, that's when COVID hit, and then we were in lockdown. The first few months, it was complete silence because of COVID. Then it was only in November 2020 we were called to the office to get our email set up and employee numbers, and they gave us computers. We were then going to work from home. So now we had to transition from the office environment to now working from home, which was not easy at first. Especially if you are new to the company. We were then placed in different departments. Normally, if we are on a learnership, like we get to be placed in different departments. And then I was fortunate enough that I was placed in the business intelligence department, of which I had a bit of a background on. Our contract was supposed to end in March 2021, but because of COVID, they extended the program to end in August 2021. The best part about learnership is that you get to have a mentor. So my mentor, the contract was ending in August. So my mentor told me that I was not going to be absorbed in the current department due to headcount. So she suggested that we start applying for other positions in other departments. So I then applied for a data engineering role. And then that role, I started the role in September 2021. That's where I acquired my Python skills, and that's where I perfected my SQL coding. And then I started working there in 2021. And then in last year, May 2023, that's when I joined the data analysis team. And then also, I would say it's very important to work for an organization that supports your career growth. Last year, I obtained my Microsoft Azure certificate. It was paid by the organization. And then I'm also currently pursuing other certifications. The learning does not stop. We get to be introduced to new technologies every now and then. So it's very important to just keep on upskilling yourself. My favorite verse is from Zechariah 4 verse 10. It says, "Despise not the days of small beginnings." I started out as a learner. I transitioned to a data engineer, and I am now a data analyst. What I love most about my qualification is that it provides a variety of career paths. I can wake up tomorrow and decide to be a data scientist and will still apply to that. My advice to students is that always remember your why. Every journey begins with a purpose. So keep in mind why you started and where you want to go. Learning is a process. Failure is another opportunity to do better. Always seek guidance. Always seek guidance from your lecturers and tutors. They are there to assist you. Our journeys are very different. Thank you, guys.
Guys, as we continue with our program, our next alumni speaker is Uchula Mabena. She did a BCom Law and an LLB degree at UNISA. Currently, she works for Ernst & Young as a senior manager. She specializes in legal and tax.
So as I've already been mentioned, I hold a BCom Law and an LLB that I obtained from UNISA. I think my journey is a unique one because I wasn't a conventional full-time student. I worked and studied. So I did my BCom, and at that instance, I was a full-time student. And then towards the end of my BCom, I was approached by a lady that owned a small law firm in Boksburg to do articles with her. So she had asked me if I wanted to start working with her. So during the course of my LLB, I then started working at the law firm. So there's this thing that you can do where you register for either 5-year or 3-year articles. So I know the conventional thing for lawyers is that you're used to people doing 2-year articles after you've completed your LLB, but there's a mechanism which the Law Society allows you to start doing your articles before you've obtained your LLB, and that's what I opted for. So I registered for 3-year articles. And then I was doing 5 modules at a time. Sorry, someone's not on mute. I'm just going to try and mute them. So I was doing 5 modules at a time and working full time as well. And I think for me that was extremely challenging because I was in essence taking on the same kind of responsibility as a full-time student and also having a job of doing articles. So that required a lot of discipline, because it's not like I had time during the day to study. I needed to dedicate time in the evenings to study. And I think being a UNISA student, UNISA allows you that flexibility of having a job, which I was grateful for because I was able to make an income while completing my studies. But it also requires a level of discipline because you still need to get through your material. And I think the people at UNISA, so your online platforms, were really helpful because you created a sense of community. So you had people around you that you could reach out to for help, which I really, really valued at the time because I was doing this by myself and I needed a community to help me through it, to know that I'm not alone in this, which was really helpful. So I completed my article. So when I completed my LLB, I would say though, people celebrate graduation. I think for me, because I knew the journey that was to come, I completed my BCom, but because I knew that I wanted to become an attorney, the graduation year BCom didn't feel like a completion of something to me. It was just like something that needed to be ticked. I think the biggest celebration for me came the day I got my results for my LLB. I remember crying the morning I got my last results for my LLB to say that I'm done, because in my final semester of my LLB as well, I had to take additional modules. I think I took 2 additional modules. So I took 5 plus 2. I had to apply for condonation in order to do that. And people at UNISA were flexible enough to allow me to do that. Otherwise, I would have taken an additional semester to complete my LLB. So people at UNISA allowed me to complete my LLB sooner, but that also was dependent on the marks that I got. So my marks were good enough for them to allow me to do that. So I remember that day that I got my LLB results, I was ecstatic because I knew that I had completed my LLB and my article simultaneously. That process of having to go through those things simultaneously isn't an easy thing, and I don't think it's a decision that anyone should take lightly. And if you're currently experiencing that, I can fully sympathize with you, but I can tell you now that it's not the end of the world. It's not impossible. And it's worth it at the end of the day, considering the amount of time that you're sacrificing and what you're going to get at the end of the day. It's worth it. I say push through it, because there's nothing like the life after that, the life after the sacrifice you've made. It's just a little sacrifice for a lot of gain in the future. So I completed articles, and I knew that I don't want to work for a conventional law firm. So the law firm that I worked for did like civil litigation. So they would go to court for divorces and property law, and I knew that I didn't want to do that because I just had a inclination towards commercial law, which was predominantly tax, which is what I specialize in today. So I then decided that I'm going to leave the law firm that I'm working for, and then I'm going to go work and then I took a time off. So as I said, it was strenuous for me. So I then decided that I'm going to take a few months off. And in those few months, I was under the opinion that it would be easy to get a job post articles in tax, but boy, was I wrong. I really just got a reality check because I submitted so many applications, and as the person before me who spoke, you get so many "we regret to inform you," and it becomes so disheartening because you're thinking that this break that I'm taking is just like a short period, and then it ends up being prolonged because some people aren't willing to take a chance on you. And I think, like the speakers before me have said, building community, like making relationships with people, is one of the biggest services you'd have for yourself. And because that's how I got my big break in tax, because I was adamant that I want to work as a tax lawyer. So what happened then is that I reached out to someone I'd assisted with a divorce while I was in articles. So she was a partner at one of the big audit firms, and I'd expressed to her, I would really, really love to explore my career in tax. And because of how our relationship that we built when I was in articles, she then said, send through your CV. There's actually a post available for a lawyer. And that's how I got to cut my teeth in tax and, open the doors in tax. And that's because someone gave me a chance. Someone I'd met in a previous life and created good relationships with gave me an opportunity to then practice in tax. So in 2016, I then started at EY as a supervisor in the tax department, the tax dispute department. And I can say that from there, my career just flourished. And I think sometimes when you're the holder of a UNISA qualification, there's a lot of talk online that, UNISA has subpar qualifications. And I tend to disagree passionately, because I'm sitting where I am today and I'm sitting in tables with big names and CEOs of multinational companies, and I can hold my own because of the quality of the education I received from UNISA. So I can say that UNISA, there's no difference between me and someone else that graduated from a different university. I think the difference, what sets you apart, is how determined you are to make a difference. If you want to be a subpar, you're going to be subpar. You're the one that's giving UNISA a bad name. It's not UNISA that's giving you a bad education. The quality of UNISA education is on par with all the other universities. It's up to you what you decide that you're going to do with that. And I think it's been evident in the job opportunities that I've been getting, because a lot of people will say, Hore, having UNISA qualification, you're not going to get into big law. I got into the biggest law firm in Africa. So I worked for ENS Africa for a bit. I worked in their law firm, and my qualifications didn't hold me back because I knew what I was there to do and what I wanted to achieve. So I spent a few years at ENS Africa, but then I got the opportunity to come back here to EY, and I now lead up the tax dispute team. So I'm in charge of anything and everything that's related to fights with SARS. So I've had big disputes with the South African Revenue Services all the way to the Supreme Court of Appeal. So some of the cases that you read about in tax modules, I was involved in, which I pride myself in, and I'm proud to say that as a UNISA student, I was able to achieve those things. I'm proud to say that I was able to achieve those things as a UNISA student. I think some of the difficulties that we face as UNISA students is the perception of what other people have of us, and you can't let that deter you from being great. You can't be embarrassed of being a UNISA student, because there are lots of people that have UNISA qualifications that have gone on to do amazing things. It's just how you treat this qualification that you have, because I think going into the working world, it's a very big leap from what you used to do, when you were studying. The adjustment from going into the working world is a challenging one, but it's not impossible to adjust. I think it just takes the right mindset, because sometimes you don't always have the right people around you, but if you have the right mindset, you're able to make strides, because in those beginning days when you're still a junior, you will face all kinds of people, and you're still building up your confidence in order to respond to people. But going into the working world after UNISA qualification, I'm telling you now that it's not that hard. It's challenging, but it's not impossible. Just hold in there. You will be successful if you just put your mind to it and you apply yourself. What can I say about my experience in the workplace right now? My experience in the workplace right now is that I am a seasoned professional. I hold my own. I have my own book of business. I have my own clients that, come to me for and depend on me for their tax dispute matters. I think in the career that I have, I've been so fortunate to have been a UNISA student, because I think another thing that affords you is that you have discipline and you have no one else that's pushing you. And that still applies to me today, is that I'm such a self-starter because of that initial groundwork that was put in as a UNISA student. Is I'm able to function by myself. Just, tell me what it is that you need and I'll be able to do it, which is the benefit of being a UNISA student. It may be tough, yes, when you're young, but really it's not impossible. Tough isn't the end of the world. Tough it's building you to be a better professional at the end of the day, which is honestly what you want. You want to be a refined professional that people come to. I think one of the greatest values that I can say you need as a UNISA person is community. Is all these activities that UNISA has and get-togethers that they have. I mean, for my LLB, unfortunately, I couldn't attend a lot of them because I was working. But if you have the opportunity to attend events and make community, even better, because those are the people that are going to be able to help you navigate your career after UNISA. Because a lot of career is a lot about who you know, not necessarily what you know. What you know is important, but who you know is also very important, because when those jobs become available, if you have a friend that you went through the trenches with, they can tell you about it and recommend you. Sometimes being top of mind and being recommended will actually be the differentiator between you getting the job or not. And that's just the gist of my career. Coming from UNISA and having 2 qualifications from UNISA that make me stand up above the rest. And that's about it for me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mapena, for sharing your journey with us and for availing yourself to our students, giving advice as to what is it exactly that they need to do to pursue this career. It's either in tax, economics, or in law. It seems like I have questions for you already on the chat box. I don't know if maybe you're able to see them.
Brilliant. Let me try and access them.
I can read them out to you, though.
Sure, you may. Yeah, cool.
Okay. The first one is from Michaela. She says, please also talk a little bit about your experience in getting admitted and writing the entry exams.
Okay, so cool, Michaela. I'm happy to address that. So, as I said, I was doing my LLB and working at the same time. So I attended the PLTs. I don't know if they're still called PLTs. So I attended the evening ones at WITS. So I would leave work, go to WITS to attend the PLT classes, because you need that in order to be admitted. And then because I'd done my BCom and it was very commerce driven, I already had like an understanding of 2 of the exams that are required. So it was accounting and deceased estate. So I didn't really need the PLT classes for that. So I just attended fun ed classes that were preparation for the exams. I wrote my exams and I did well. I didn't struggle with those 2. So I wrote those first. And then once I'd done my PLT, I then completed the other 2 board exams. I think the one I passed court and I got a oral for ethics. An oral is equivalent to like a subbing a subject. So then I went for my oral and I passed, and I completed those while still doing my LLB and while still working. And then I took a while to get admitted. So I had already started working at EY and I hadn't been in practice. But then there's a rule that you must be admitted for a year after you complete your article. So I waited about a year and I got admitted, and there was no stress in me getting admitted. I think you have to engage the services of a law firm and they will guide you through the process. It was a pretty seamless process of getting admitted.
Thank you for that. It was actually quite clear. I also understood. I'm hoping Michaela understood. But if maybe you have something else, Michaela, maybe you did not understand, Ms. Mapena, you can actually let us know in the chat box, although I highly doubt it. Okay, let's go to the second question. We have one from Ubongani David Msiza. Hi, Ms. Mapena, are you an advocate or an attorney? I might not have heard where you fit in between the 2.
Okay, that's fine. Hi, Bongani. I'm an attorney, so I'm an admitted attorney. So the difference is advocates, they do pupillage, but then as attorneys, we do articles. So I did articles for 2 years and that qualifies me as an attorney.
Perfect. So if you want to be an attorney, you do practical legal training. If you want to be an advocate, you do pupillage. Yes, it does make sense. Thank you for that. Okay, the last one is from Ruth Tutuzilendlovu. Good afternoon, ma'am. I wanted to ask, how did you know which law to specialize in? I think that's the first one. I think it's a lot. The second one is, secondly, please rephrase on how you started articles, which year? The third one is, how did you navigate between working and studying? Another one is, how did you ensure on getting good marks? What are the books you recommend for self-growth and knowledge of law? Sorry for more questions at once. I can't speak. I'm at work.
No worries, that's fine. Happy to help you. So the first one is, how did I decide what I want to specialize in? Because I did my BCom first, I was exposed to the commerce subjects first, and I did tax in my BCom. So I enjoyed doing tax in my BCom. That's why I knew that when I wanted to specialize, I wanted to go into tax. So it was an easy thing for me because I just had that backing of my BCom. And I think another helpful thing is that once you get to the latter modules in your LLB, you then have an option of choosing which ones you want as electives. So it was easy for me because I'd already decided that I'm going to go very commerce driven. And another thing that helped is because I was already working in law and I could see that family law was not my thing. I remember the one day during articles, I sat in my office and it was a custody case. The grandparents, the paternal grandparents of the child and the mother were fighting over the custody of the child, and I sat there crying reading this case. I get too emotionally invested in other people's business, so then I knew at that point there's no way I could do something that involved people, and that's why I needed to go into corporate where I'm more comfortable. So that's one. Secondly, please rephrase how you started articles, which year. So my articles were registered in 2013. And how I started articles is that I had completed my BCom, and then I applied to the Law Society to register for 3-year articles. Remember, as I said, normal conventional articles, if you have an LLB in hand, are 2 years. But if you have another qualification, so if you have another undergrad, they allow you to register for 3-year articles. And that's how I began my article journey. But there's also the option of starting to do articles without a qualification at all. And in that instance, you register for 5-year articles in the hopes that you finish your LLB within the 5 years. And then thirdly, how did you navigate between working and studying? I think I was very blessed enough is that in between working and studying, I still lived at home. So I still had the support of my parents, which is very helpful. So I didn't need to worry about, supporting a household or anything. So I was still young enough. And I lived at home and I relied on my support of my parents. And then I built a community of students as well that took similar modules with me. So we would help each other with like notes, and one person would be responsible for speaking to the lecturer, because we all couldn't do it because we all had different life responsibilities. So having a group of people to help you really lessens the load on you. And I think that's what helped me with the balancing of working and studying. And I think a level of discipline as well, especially since I was taking 5 modules at a time. Sometimes you just need to deprive yourself of certain things. There's certain fun things that you need to deprive yourself in those few years because what you're sacrificing for the greater good. It's just a small sacrifice, as I said, for much greater gains. And that's how I was able to do that. And then how did I ensure that I got good marks? I think it was just making time. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I went and I studied every day after work because it's exhausting and I'm human. So I would probably make like 2 to 3 days a week where I would dedicate time to particular modules and set out a timetable and make time to get through the coursework. And that's how I think I did it, because sometimes I think in the beginning when I started studying, I did the mistake of leaving the work until it was like I have to do an assignment and I have to write exams, and that's only when I'd open the book, which would be to my detriment because I'd be now stressing and pulling an all-nighter and your marks wouldn't be good. Whereas if you dedicate the time prior and you try and understand the work. So I always say, you must learn to understand and not necessarily just to memorize and write the exam. That's not what you're learning for. You're learning for longevity. So you must sit down and understand what it is that you're going through. And once you give yourself time to actually interact with the lecturers and the tutors, it actually makes it so much easier when you're preparing for assignments and exams. So I think that's how I helped myself get good marks while I was at UNISA. What books would I recommend for self-growth and knowledge of the law? I think one of the books that I'd recommend, there is an advocate by the name of Jeremy Gauntlet. Jeremy Gauntlet was an advocate in South Africa, and also he was a solicitor in the UK. He's still practicing as an advocate today, and he is one of the greatest legal minds our country has. So he wrote a book called Beyond the Bench. I would recommend that because it talks about his experience in law, and it also just is a very inspirational book of how his career came to be and how he is now one of the most renowned, world-renowned advocates that we have. So I would recommend that book. Well, I think that was the last one. And then what age was I? So someone's asking what age was I when I got admitted. I'm just trying to think. 2016. I think I was 25. Yeah, I think I was 25 when I got admitted. Yeah. Then.
Okay. Thank you for that, Ms. Mabena. Another one from Dr. Nkabinde. Any challenges you had in the small law firm you worked at, and please also speak on the advantages and disadvantages of working or doing articles at a small law firm.
Okay. Challenges I had at the small law firm. First of all, because people glamorize law, you think you're going to get paid like a lot of money. If you're going to go work for a small law firm, that's not the case. I mean, when I first started working, I was getting paid 5,000 Rand. And at the time, there was still a requirement for you to have a car, which I think is unreasonable for 5,000 Rand, because how are you affording a car installment with 5,000 Rand? I was just blessed enough that my parents had bought me a car, but I think that is a big challenge. Whereas if you go work for the bigger law firms, which is what the experience I didn't have in articles, you get paid more, and that's, I think, what glamorizes it. So I think we need to just condition ourselves that not everyone gets into the big law firms, and you're not going to get the big glamorous money. Sometimes we need to start with 5,000 Rand, and then you can develop yourself from there. Sorry, I missed the other question, Doctor. So you asked about the advantages and disadvantages of working for a small law firm. So I've had experience of working for a small law firm, and I've had advantages of working in big law. And I think I'm so grateful that I did my articles at a small law firm, because you get thrust into the deep end of everything. Big law firms, you have so many people that do the work that you get stuck doing the copying and the printing, and it takes time for you to get to the juicy stuff. Whereas in a small law firm, there's not a lot of you. So you are thrust into the matter from the get-go. You are, you'd be the most senior person on a matter, and advocates would be speaking to you, and you'd be briefing advocates. I mean, with the review of your partner, of course, but you have so much more hands-on experience in a law firm. I could not recommend small law firm experience more, because it's so invaluable, the amount that you get from a small law firm, the amount of experience that you get, the amount of hands-on experience, because you get to be in court as well. A lot of the big law firms, they don't have like court appearances for juniors, whereas small law firms, you're thrust into the match courts, and you're doing Section 65s, you're doing some people's divorces, the uncontested divorces. So I really, only disadvantage I'd say about a small law firm is probably your salary, but in terms of your experience and the things that you learn, invaluable. I think that's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that response, Ms. Mabena. The questions are coming in.
That's fine.
Yes. Okay. But now it seems like there's a question that we missed from Pusetso, but I don't think it's addressed to you. I think it was addressed to one of our previous speakers. Prof Tankiso, to be honest with you. Okay. I'm gonna make sure that Prof Tankiso gets this so he can get back to the student. Okay, Pusetso, we are gonna get back to you. Okay, currently let us just focus with the ones on law. Got a response here. Okay, any challenges you had with the small? Okay, this is from Michaela again. She's saying, do you have any advice on how to find articles? Or have you responded to this?
No, I haven't. So yeah,
Okay.
I'll help with that. So I understand now, Michaela, that there's an influx of like law graduates and it's much harder to get articles. So how to set yourself apart is some things that UNISA does is they have like moot courts and they have special events for legal students. Put yourself out there, make yourself known, because that's part of the reason I got my articles. I went to moot court. And one of the people that were facilitating the moot court happened to be a lawyer of the small law firm, and they approached me post moot court, and that's how I got my articles. So sitting at home and just applying could be an option. You could be lucky, but also just putting yourself out there and letting people know that you exist in this world and just building your connections is probably another way to assist you in getting articles.
Thank you for that. That was quite clear. Thank you for that, Ms. Mapena. Okay, the following one is thanks, Ms. Mapena. I wanted to ask if you can recommend another path for becoming a tax attorney, either than through the big firms. That's the first pointer. The second one is also, what are the challenges that either you or your peers experienced when pursuing a niche area of law like tax, maritime, mining, or aviation law? And what are practitioners doing to overcome these challenges? I hope that makes sense.
That's fine.
Okay.
So you want to know how else you can become a tax attorney other than going through big law. I don't think it's impossible. You just need to find the right specialist, because there's a lot of specialists, that people that specialize in tax that run small law firms, boutique law firms. You can go to those people, approach those people and ask them to be your mentors and to do articles under them. I think that is possible, but I think it's very challenging because there are courses available at UNISA and elsewhere for tax, right? And you can do tax law by yourself, but tax isn't just theoretical. You need that hands-on experience. So as much as you may have the theory, you need someone that's going to teach you the ropes of tax, because the application of tax is very different to what they do theoretically. So you need someone that's going to guide you through that. So you can still become a tax attorney at a small law firm. You just need to find the right boutique person. I mean, there's a guy by the name of Nico Thron. So if you go look for him on LinkedIn, he runs a small law firm. He doesn't have a lot of people under him, and he's considered, one of the best people to do disputes. Doesn't run a big shop, but is still very successful in what he does. So it's definitely possible to become a tax attorney outside of big law. But also that's also very dependent on the community that you build. So he's managed to build a community by engaging people through SITE. So SITE is the South African Institute of Tax. So you can see what this events South African Institute of Tax has, attend those events and build your connections there. I think I keep reinforcing this thing that if you want to get out there, you need to build community. Community is very important for your career. And then you say, what challenges did my peers have that specialize? So a lot of my peers and I are niche people, so we all have a particular niche. And I think what's challenging in that is that should you decide that you no longer want to do this, like if I decided today that I no longer want to do tax, it's going to be very challenging for me to go into another specialization of law or just general litigation, because I niched at a very young age. And how do you overcome that? You need someone that's going to give you a chance. You honestly just need someone that's going to give you a chance. You apply for whatever role that requires your minimum. Say for me, it would be a BCom or an LLB. I would apply for those roles and just be open in my, like the opening paragraph of my CV, to say that I'm looking to pivot in my career and that I'm looking for someone to just take a chance on me. I'm a hard worker. I'm willing to learn. I think, just leaving that area is probably very difficult. And I think another thing you find when you specialize and you don't do gen is, as an attorney, what you're not taught in school is that you have to become a salesperson. So because the work isn't just going to come to you. So you need to now become this charismatic person that goes to clients and sells yourself and sells this work. So when you're selling a broader range of things, it's easier. When I'm selling something such as niche as tax that a few people in this country need, like a professional assistant with, you have a smaller client base, which makes like meeting your targets harder, not impossible, but a bit more challenging. And I think that applies to anyone that does maritime mining and aviation, is because your client base becomes so much smaller and you have other people that you're competing with, that you now need to become, this charismatic person that now goes to sell yourself. Yeah, so there's that.
Thank you for that, Ms. Mapena. Now, the final question that I see here. Oh, there's a comment from Ruth Duduzile. She says, thank you so much for your insightful responses. I appreciate it, ma'am.
It's a pleasure.
Now we go to our final question from Stembiso Brian Zaza. This one, I think it's based on the community that you were talking about. Stembiso says, good afternoon, Ms. Mapena. I am also taking 5 modules per semester while working full-time, and I'm struggling with just one of them so far. I only passed with a 57%. How do you build a community of people to study with? Studying in isolation is not really working for this module. So basically, I think what he wants to know, Uti, how does he get hooked up?
How do you get hooked up? I think sometimes it just takes for you contacting like your tutors, sometimes because tutors have people that contact them and they can put you in touch with people. Another thing is I was at UNISA many moons ago. It was like 10 years ago that I graduated. But there was on the online portal, people would be having conversations. Then you see the type of people that are talking, and then you'd reach out to them and say, do you want to start? So it actually just takes you reaching out to people yourself that you see on these chats and telling your tutors, you'd like to be in contact with someone. Can they put you in contact with someone? It's honestly just putting yourself out there. It's maybe very uncomfortable, but that's the easiest way to get help, is just putting yourself in an uncomfortable position and making yourself vulnerable to people for help.
Straightforward. That makes perfect sense. I thought it was the final question, but it seems like we have something else from Ukabelo Mahlasi.
Okay.
Ukabelo says, speaking of becoming a salesperson, what tips can you give to market yourself as a legal practitioner? I was told to be careful not to be touting, and I was wondering what that means in practice and how one should market themselves as an attorney and as an advocate, especially as a newcomer.
Yeah, you must be careful of touting. So you don't want to necessarily go out to clients and seem like, so I call it when insurance people call you and say, I'm selling you this, blah, blah, blah. You must be careful to do that. So what you want to do is you want to go to your client with a solution. You don't want to go to your client and say, I'm Jula and I'm a tax attorney. That's not going to help you with anything. You want to go to them and tell them, I'm Jula. This is what I've been able to do for other people. So all you do is selling yourself. It's saying, this is what I've been able to do for other people. This is my success rate. So I have like an 89% success rate with SARS, which is genuinely impressive, and clients genuinely want to find out more from there. And I think another thing that's important, as I said, community. You need the people around you to open the doors for you. So you need to not only build relationships with clients, you need to build relationships within the community, so those people will open doors for you, because they'll go to a client with an employment issue, right? And they'll be discussing employment issues. Client will then say, oh, I have this tax issue as well. If I have community with that particular employment lawyer, they'll say, oh no, I know a tax lawyer that can help you. So it's not just being a salesperson to people in the market, it's also with people within your circle. So other attorneys, you need to build there. But yeah, it's really, don't make it seem like it's insurance people making cold calls. You must sell your work. You must sell good work. That's what you must sell.
Okay. Now, as we're about to conclude today's business, I would like to call the head of counseling for, yes, that is one of our big bosses, Dr. Bunki Pitswane.
To our students, we really are thankful for you to have attended our Young Professional Seminar. As our director, Dr. Mashia Pata, has indicated that our aim is to shape the future. That is why we have got this kind of a workshop, so that you can have a direction towards your future. And he also indicated that education is more than a certificate. So as you leave UNISA, you know that you will be acquainted with lots of skills that will be more important than the certificate that would be having at hand. Dr. Mashia Pata, we appreciate you in your busy schedule to have come to talk, to open for us and just give a brief motivation to our students. And we had our speaker, Tepo, who also informed our students that it is so important in life to build networks. So as students, don't sit there alone in your corner and just study on your own. There is a need to build networks because they will be taking you to higher levels. And to our professor, who is always with us, Professor Tankiso, he reminded us that digital learning is the way to go. We must think digitally and be as fluent and as proficient as we can, so that we can be able to navigate this world that is going digital. We thank you, Prof, because you are always coming to our space and giving back to the university that you studied at. And Ms. Bipilo Soko tapped into our profession. She spoke a lot on issues of self-awareness, issues of confidence, and being able to identify your strengths and weaknesses. Of course, that is very important. As a student, you need to know who you are so that you can improve on your shortfalls. And Miss Nolo, I think she preferred to be called Nolo, and she spoke about lifelong learning and that learning goes beyond graduation. And it also tallies with us shaping the futures. We thank you, Nolo, for having spoken to our students, being our alumni, and that in life we need to overcome challenges. We cannot sit on the challenges and say that they are determining my life. We need to move on and be able to be the best version of ourselves. And Miss Mabena, the last speaker, yeah, I think you were really put in a frying pan. Everybody wanted to ask questions from you, wanted a piece of you. It shows that they really enjoyed what you were talking about. Young as you are, you have really touched the life of our students. And I loved it that you said that we need to learn, to understand, to build ourselves within a community. And then we need to gain experience from our community. That is very important, giving back to the community that we come from, and also being able to go to the community, and what we have learned in our institution should improve our communities that we are coming from. To all our speakers, we thank you, Mr. Malapane. In absentia, we are also thankful. We know that some of these life events are beyond our control. We thank him in absentia. And I'd like to thank our colleague from DCCD that we collaborate with on day-to-day basis, Ms. Makanya. We really appreciate you. You are always there for us, for our students, and we thank you. And the organizers of this event, Ms. Mabua, thank you very much for making it possible that we are able to have this talk to our students. We appreciate you. Of course, our program director, thank you very much, Munabisi. You never disappoint. We appreciate you, and thank you very much for being who you are. And all our student counselor who are here today, thank you very much. And our technical team, we know quite well that our admin officers are working tirelessly behind the scene. Komoto, Diksha, Gloria, and our TCGPs who have just joined us. We are very thankful to you to have made this workshop a success. And everybody, I hope I haven't forgotten anyone. And to everybody who's here, our students students, thank you very much for having been part of our workshop. We really appreciate that. Back to you, Program Director. From me, I appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Stay blessed. Thank you.